Hey there, welcome to the Agents of Revival podcast. If you're ready to be healed and take full accountability of your life by evolving into your best self, then this is the podcast for you. I am your host, Andrea Griffin Rogers, and I'll share with you winning steps as well as personal tips and anecdotes on how to go from brokenness to wholeness and from scattered pieces to inner peace. So come on in and join me on this healing journey, and let's become whole together. Enjoy it! Hey guys, what's up? How are you today? I pray all is well. This message stirs your faith, falls on good ground, produces good fruit in your lives. Today we are talking about the problems with patterns, And we are still in the Vision series. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you be encouraged and inspired to make some changes in your life, to restart the year fresh. I know the year started a month ago, but sometimes some people may have started their New Year's resolutions and then kind of fell off. Well, hey, I'm back and I'm here to help you to get going or continue moving forward. And maybe you're here because you stumbled upon my podcast and you were like, oh, I want to be intentional about my healing. I want to get better. I want to live a balanced life. Well, welcome. And I hope that you receive what you need to receive in this podcast. Make sure you come daily because I release daily content to hear this podcast. And make sure if you're not doing it already, and this is for my day ones out there as well, that you're following me on social media platforms at Andrea Griffin Rogers. All right, so let's get into this message of the problems with patterns. So whenever we want to achieve a goal, we have to stop and look at our habits, our patterns. What do we do and how we do it matters and will determine how far we'll go, as well as how effectively we'll get something done and the time it's going to take. So, for example, when it comes to working out, since we just talked about that, so when it comes to working out, you may have a goal in mind that you want to achieve, whether it be you want to lose weight for a particular purpose, or you just want to be more active and healthier and stay in shape. Whatever your goal is, you have to look at your own patterns, your own life, your own habits. You can't go off of what somebody else has done or what they post on Instagram and whatnot, because again, that is what's working for them, as well as you don't know what they've been doing up to that point. It's the same thing with these like different type of diet pills and stuff that are out here. You can't take everything that's out here because you don't know how it's going to affect your body. And so you may look at your favorite so-and-so on Instagram and see, well, they're taking this pill or, these injections or whatever, and it's working for them. But then you may go and try to take it and it may be detrimental to your health. And you don't know how it's affecting their health because they don't show you the problems. They show you the highlight reel. They show you what looks good. And so you're like, oh, that looks good. I'm going to try it. And you don't know what they've done to achieve that. I mean, some of your favorite celebrities, even though they may, show a picture of them in the gym, they went to a surgeon and got things surgically removed so that they can look skinny or look a certain way. And so you thinking, oh man, I'm gonna get to the gym and I'm gonna look just like them, not realizing that you don't know the patterns. You don't know what happened before they took that picture. And so we have to be careful with comparing ourselves and our journeys to other people. And that's across the board. It doesn't just mean in terms of health or fitness. It could be maybe you're starting a business or you're working on a project and your team member is a few steps ahead of you in the project. Okay, but you don't know their patterns and how they work, their work ethic. You know, or you think you know from the outside looking in, but you don't really know how they manage things. And you don't know until it's time to present it if they've done it well. Yeah, because I've been in situations like that where, I was working with people on projects, not just in my own business, but also when I used to work corporate. And I would think that, oh, they finished before me, and so it must be like spectacular and immaculate. And sometimes I would down myself. So again, I don't teach you anything that I haven't learned. I would down myself and I would be upset with myself, thinking that, okay, I must be lacking in some area. And then it'll become time to present the project. And theirs may look sloppy, or theirs may not have all of the details that was needed, because they omitted some things, thinking that they were either working smarter and not harder, or thinking that that wasn't needed. And then it was time to present it. And then the boss or whoever is like, well, where's these numbers, or where's this, or where that? And they're like, oh, I didn't think you would need that. But see, I took time to make sure that every I was dotted and every T was crossed. That means that I took time to make sure that all the checks and balances were in order, so that when it came time to present the project, everything was there. There was no need to ask a question, because everything was completely answered. Everything you would have thought of, I'd already thought of it, because I took time to really think about it. So again, you can't compare yourself to other people, because you don't know their patterns. And you think that the grass is green on the other side until you get over there and you realize they got turf. This is fake grass. Now, I thought that they must have been doing something amazing to keep their grass looking green in the wintertime. And all along, it's been fake grass. So you never know. You got to look at your own patterns. Excuse me. And I think about this in terms of my life, because I've been looking at my own patterns even recently. Y'all, learning this lesson even recently. Working with some new team members that have come on board. Thank God for that. Thank God for help. And, they were looking to me to get something done and to get back to them with something. And I didn't do that. And it wasn't that it wasn't done. Like, in my mind, and what I wrote down was done. It was completed. But because this is new for me to have more people on the team than the people that I've already had, because the people I've already had work like me. So it's like, hey, when you get it to us, we get it to us. Well, some other people on the team are like, no, we need it like this. Quick, fast, in a hurry, like a snap. And so they were like, well, what's going on with this? And it was like, oh, I didn't tell you. Oh, right. Cause I wrote it down for me, or I put it in my mind to do, but I never got back to them. And so I recognized, oh, well, what is the issue here? Now for them, they may have felt like it was just ineffective communication. That's not the problem. The problem was a pattern that I've had for a while now, that I've had to now realize I got to adjust, of working a certain way. I've been working a certain way for so long that now I'm like, oh, I'm dealing with new people that don't work that way. So now I have to shift gears to adapt in this new flow, this new wave of doing things, so that it's seamless across the board. And so I had to look at my problem with my patterns. It wasn't the initial problem. The initial problem that they thought was lack of communication. No, I'm very good and effective at communicating myself. The problem was my pattern. My pattern of the way I do it first, and then after I do it first, and then I'm going to get to you and I get to you. Realizing, no, people are working for me on deadlines. And so it's like, we need this now. And it's like, oh, right. Okay. Yeah, bet. I got to get that to you. So something that I had to learn for myself, to look at my patterns. Excuse me. When it comes to relationships, we got to look at our patterns. A lot of times people want, we're on the cusp of Valentine's Day tomorrow, and people are in relationships, or sometimes people called up that ex-boo because you didn't want to be by yourself Valentine's Day, or you didn't want to be by yourself for the wintertime. You want to be booed up. And so you get into these relationships, or you're in these relationships, and you're wondering why you're not happy and fully satisfied. Why there's no glow about you, like you would want to have. And could it be that there's a problem in your patterns? You keep picking the same person I don't care if it's a different name and a different face. It is the same person. What I mean by that, it's the same spirit. It's the same person. I had to look at that in my life. I remember when I was in college. So this is a while back, y'all. But in college, I had some friends. I can't believe we did this. But I had some friends, and one day when we were in the dorm, having like a pizza party or something, just hanging out in, each other's, one of my friends' dorm rooms. And so we just decided to, talk about guys that we were dating and whatnot. I forgot, I think it might be the Friday or Saturday night. And so we were kind of thinking of what to do. And it just turned into like, let's order some food in, and let's just kind of talk and chill and listen to some music. And so we did that. And in the midst of the conversation and us hanging out, we got on the topic of the different guys I was dating at that time. And in the different guys I was dating at that time, they decided to make a chart. I don't know what happened to this chart. I'm glad that prayerfully we discarded, because I really do not even remember what happened. But they was like, girl, we need to write this down. And so they took like this white cardboard, I don't know where we got it from, and then started to like draw out, like write all the names down of different guys that I was like dating at that time. And it wasn't a lot of guys I was dating at the time. So let me make this clear. It was a few of the guys I was dating at that time, and then guys over the course from my last relationship that I had dated. And so my last relationship, I would like to say, was like my first love. So since my first love, they wrote down a chart of all the different guys I've dated since then. And we found a problem with the pattern. Every guy, and it took one of my friends to see it, because I couldn't see it myself. And sometimes we can't see the problems in our patterns. This is why it's very important to make sure you have the right team around you, the right people around you that have discernment, or at least some sort of eye to see and catch what you cannot see. And so as they wrote down all these different names and stuff on the board, they were like, there's a pattern here. And I was like, really? How? And at first I was looking at the names, and I'm like, well, no, it's not that. And I'm looking at the ages, and I'm like, no, the age groups are kind of like all over the place. It's not that. So I'm like, well, what is the pattern? And one of my friends said, the pattern is every single one of these guys you judge and compare to your first love. Bruh, baby, okay? I was like the Minions. Like, have you ever seen the Minions when they do that? That what? Like, that's how I was. Like, and the Minions, I don't even think was out back then. But my jaw dropped, because I had never paid attention to the patterns. And here I am, and dating this new person, and did not realize like this new person was just a new face, but an old person, an old spirit. The same spirit lingered in all these different people. And so the problem wasn't the ex-boyfriend. The problem wasn't the guys I was dating. The problem was me. I had to look at myself, and it took my friends creating this crazy chart for me to see it put on paper. That's why I said, when it comes to, you're going to hear me say this probably every day. You got to write it down. Write down the areas that are problems in your life. Write down the areas that you want to grow in and develop in and become better in. Write down your patterns. Like, write all these things down, because it's not until you get it out your head that you're able to really connect the dots. Even when it comes to my healing, just sidebar really quickly, I did not get healed from past traumatic experiences because it was just in my head. Because as long as it was in my head, it kept me in bondage, in a state of sadness or bitterness, or just overwhelmed and anxious and all those things, even depression. But when I got it out of my head and I started to write it down, and I also went to a counselor, and I worked with my spiritual mentor and a spiritual life coach, and all these different things I talked about before in this course of this podcast, when I started to do the work, that's when I actually was able to see the patterns. I was able, and granted, some patterns, when we think about, things that go back to childhood trauma, aren't ours, but we get to see the patterns of how it developed from seeds that were planted back then in the course of our life as an adult. And so when my friends did that, I was like, wait a minute. The pattern here is something that I feel like I'm missing from my ex-boyfriend. But then I need to go back to the source. And it wasn't going back to the ex-boyfriend. It was going back to what was it that ex-boyfriend, that first love fulfilled in my life that I kept trying to fill a void in. And then I had to go back deeper because it wasn't just about stopping there. Now, for that particular person, one of the things that was key there was trust and friendship. And so it's like, okay, that's something that is lacking here that I keep trying to recreate and redevelop in all these other guys and other relationships. Because with my first love, we had a great friendship, and I just felt like I could trust that person to talk about that person, to talk to that person about any and everything. And so it's like trying to recreate this. But I had to realize, okay, but where did that really start? Because it didn't start there. It started back to, and some of you may have already been guessed it. We don't like to say that things started in childhood, but it did. We have to be honest about it. And for me, it started in childhood with my lack of feeling like I can trust my parents with my intimate secrets, that I could go to them to talk to them about any and everything, that I could have that friendship. And so then when the first boy, in a sense, came along that I fell in love with, and that gave me that, and then when that relationship, ended, then there came a pattern of me trying to recreate something that was ultimately a void that stemmed farther back than that first person. Y'all see how that connected? So we got to look at the problems of our patterns, and we got to address it. And the way that I learned to address that problem so that now looking forward, when I start dating somebody new, I don't bring in that same pattern, is I had to, first of all, go through a season of separation. I'm going to talk about that one day. I had to go through a season of separation. I had to make a conscious decision, and it actually took reconnecting with that first love and then it not working again. This is back in 2017 for me to realize, okay, girl, you are making yourself frustrated. You are breaking your own heart. Curiosity didn't kill the cat. You did. Okay. Because you wanted something so bad that you were not looking at the patterns and you were not looking at the warning signs. And part of the warning signs wasn't just the person. Some of the warning signs were you. I had to look internally and realize like what part I was playing here. And so I had to say, okay, you know what? I got to change these patterns. And so I made a conscious decision and I prayed about it because I'm a praying person. I prayed about it because I needed that guidance. I needed to know how to do it because it was hard. And I'm going to be honest, I was a person that used to feel like I don't want to be alone. And so that was another thing of why I was dating the same type of person. Because back to that first relationship, that person and I would spend like all of our time together. And so I was trying to recreate that with every other person that was not giving me that. Because they were like, no, I'm not about to spend all my time with you. And so I had to realize, okay, let me address my problems. My problems, not their problems, my problems. Because in order for me to change my patterns, I got to address my problems. And so I made a conscious decision in 2017 to be single. You know, after trying to reconnect with my ex and it didn't work, I said, all right, I have got to pull back. I'm tired of breaking my own heart. I'm tired of feeling empty. I'm tired of feeling incomplete. And I'm going to be quite honest, because I was sexually active at that time. Let's be real here. We real, you know, at the ages of revival. I had to say, I'm tired of crying myself to sleep while I'm sleeping next to somebody else who does not care about my heart. I had to take my heart back and stop giving it to everybody else. We cannot keep being upset with people and blaming them for breaking our own hearts. No, you broke your heart because it was not that person's job to protect your heart. It is your job to guard and protect your heart. That's a command, if you will, a an internal rule, if you will, that God gave us to guard your own heart. That's why the heart is in our own bodies. It's not in somebody else's body. We have our own hearts in our own bodies. So it is our job to guard and protect our own hearts. And so if you just give it away to somebody, whether you feel like they prove themselves or not, you cannot be disappointed in them being human, them making mistakes, them being flawed, and them choosing to walk away. Because as I said before, were there red flags there that showed you that this was not the right person for you? I can be honest. In a lot of my relationships in the past, there were tons of red flags. Even with my first love, tons of red flags that was not the right relationship. But I did not want to listen to them. Why? Because I didn't want to be alone. And because there was an emptiness inside of me of longing for somebody I can trust, somebody that I can, share my intimate details with and whatnot, that I did not get from childhood. And so I pushed it on to somebody else, projected it on to this relationship. And so I had to realize my problem is not the relationships. My problem is not the men I'm dating. The problem is me. And if I want to change the pattern and the trajectory of these men that are coming to me that I'm dating, then I got to deal with my problems first. And so I made a conscious decision to be single. And I made a conscious decision to find out, what do I like? What are my dislikes? What are my standards? And not superficial standards. Because a lot of people think of standards and they think of, well, I want a person built like this and look like this. No. No, what are my personal standards? And if you say, well, what do you mean by that, Andrea? Okay, what are my morals? What are my values? What is important to me? What would I want out of a person that I feel can be beneficial to the betterment of my life if I'm going to do life with them? This applies to friendships, but also relationships. So you got to think about it. All of this is dealing with us, not them. And so I took that time in this season to be single so that I can figure me out, so that I can learn to love me first, so that I can learn to be my own best friend, my own cheerleader, my own support team, so that I can learn that I'm strong enough to stand on my own. I don't need a man there to do that. But before, I thought I did. So again, we have to address our own problems with our own patterns and stop pointing it to other people. I had to figure out how to love me. What does it take to love me? What does it take to get me up and going in the morning? What does it take to make me fall asleep at night? Before, I'm going to be honest, I thought it was sex. And then I realized, I don't even need that to go to sleep. So I had to realize, what do I really need to go to sleep at night? What do I really, and some people may think, well, I need these pills. I don't think that's what you really need. Because God created our bodies to be able to awake and go to sleep. That's part of his power and authority over us, is to awake and go to sleep. So you think it's the pills that help you go to sleep. But there's an area you're not addressing. And so you're using the pills as a crutch. But when you stop using all of these vices, your body will be able to naturally go to sleep when you stop running from the problems and address the problems. You want your patterns to change. You want your behaviors to change. You got to be willing to address the problems. They're not going to just change on their own. So I had to look at my problems. And I had to learn myself. And a lot of times people think they know themselves because they're of their age. Well, I'm such and such years old, and so I know myself. No, you really don't know the innermost part of yourself. You know what culture has projected on you of yourself. You know what other people have projected on you of yourself. You know what hurts and pains and rejection and wounds have created you to be. But you don't know your real, most inner self. Because you've never allowed yourself to completely be vulnerable. Because the world says that's weak. You shouldn't do that. That's a problem. Like, You shouldn't be that type of person. But it's actually when you choose to be vulnerable with yourself and honest with yourself where you're able to find your deepest strength. But until you're willing to do that work, then you will always have this facade up of something that you're trying to project that's not real. That's not authentic. And that's why even when it comes to your happiness, it's conditional. You don't really have inner joy. Your peace is conditional. You don't have real inner peace. You think your peace has to do with the environment. But it doesn't matter what environment I'm in, I'm able to stay in perfect peace because my peace doesn't come from external, it comes from internal. And so, what are you not addressing in your life that you need to address? Write it down. Make it plain. Do you really know what it takes for you to be happy? Do you really know your tics? What irritates you? What bothers you? And don't say, well, when people do this, again, you're pointing the finger externally. We're looking at internally. Because a lot of times the things that we think that are bothering us with other people really have to do with us and not them. Because people will be people. But you got to look at yourself. Do you really love yourself? Can you look in the mirror completely naked by yourself and say, looking into your own eyes through the mirror, and say, I love you. I appreciate you. This is what I love about you, and name the things you love. Most people cannot do that because you'll look in that mirror and you'll immediately start seeing flaws. And then you'll start talking about what you need to work on and this and the other. But no, can you just talk positive to yourself? What are your patterns? When it comes to friendships, this is the same thing. I had to look at myself and my friendships and look at what I was projecting in friendships. Why I was not getting the type of friendships I wanted. And I had to realize, okay, you know what? The problem is in my patterns. I'm picking the wrong people. And not that they're wrong in terms of they're bad people. They're wrong for me, but it's because they were filling a void that was in me. And so when I started to address the void, I realized almost all my friends have fallen off. Why? Because they filled a void that at one point was needed, but now it's no longer needed. Because I've learned to stand tall within myself. I've learned to empower and strengthen and motivate and encourage myself. I've learned to be my own cheerleader. And I've also realized that the dysfunction that we weren't for friendships in, or friends in, and had our friendships in, I don't want that anymore. Birds of a feather flock together. And so a lot of times your patterns, sometimes you could see it, but you may not see it in yourself. You see it in your friends. And so you'll point out what's wrong with your friends and what they're doing wrong and not realizing that birds of a feather flock together. Your issue isn't really with them, it's with you. And so let this be your wake-up call today to stop pointing the finger outward and take time to really sit by yourself and reflect with pen and paper in hand or your notes app on your phone or your tablet or your computer or whatever you take notes on, and start really writing it down. What areas are you looking to become better in? What areas do you want to grow in? What habits do you want to change? Are you picking the same type of person to be your friend or in a relationship with you that resembles the last person? And why? Where is there a void in your life that you're trying to fill with this particular person? What goals do you really want to exemplify for yourself? What type of change do you want to see in your life? And then once you write these things down, create a plan of action. And you don't create a plan of action by trying to tackle everything at once. You break it down into small bits. And so whatever's on your list, whatever seems like the least thing, the smallest thing, baby steps. Then take that and address that so that you can cross that off and then move up. You don't look at a mountain and say from the valley, mountaintop. No. But how you get to the mountaintop is by breaking it down bit by bit, step by step. And every move you make as you go up the mountain, you will eventually get to the mountaintop. As you deal with these areas in your life now, you will ultimately see the goal, the achievement, the balanced and happiest version of yourself that you want to see, your best healed self that you want to become. But it all starts with addressing the problems with your patterns first. So we are out of time. I got to go. We'll come back and talk some more about this. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Cause his face shine upon you. May the Lord God be gracious to you. Show you his favor and give you shalom. Give you his peace. Take care. Love you guys. Bye now.